Hello, this is James Hunter, and this is my channel, James Hunter Podcast. And today I'm going to be speaking with Rochelle Crystalline. And Rochelle does intuitive counseling using divine guidance to help individuals. She has a YouTube channel. I'm going to let her speak to that issue when we start asking her some questions today. I have a few questions that I use kind of flexible that I use for interviewing my guests on my channel. Basically, I interview people with different walks of life and belief systems, existential issues, wellness, spiritual topics, and so on. Very flexible. So what I'm going to do is turn it over to Rochelle with my first question. And essentially, yeah, tell us about your background, what you do, and essentially how you arrived at this point in your life. Most people don't wake up and then you're just who you are, right? It's typically a process. So yeah, Rochelle, go ahead and tell us about yourself.
All right. Well, I am Rochelle Crystalline. And yes, it has definitely been a lifelong process of getting to where I am today. Um, I work with individuals with wellness, body, mind, and spirit. Um, really, anything that helps to bring them back to their true essence with shedding whatever they are carrying that's no longer needed, and to release it so that they can be drawn back in to their deepest real selves, which also allows for more of a peaceful flow. And I use many things to get there. I help with nutritional
Mhm.
counseling. I help with trauma, releasing traumas. I do sound frequency healing with crystal bowls, and I do some shamanic work. I do some hands-on Reiki healing and aromatherapy, and really, I think the biggest thing is listening to them and helping them to be more aware of themselves, and that that seems to be the most effective tool for working with people. And I actually work with several people who are therapists themselves.
Oh, excellent.
So it's very effective.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. And just took a few notes as you were kind of speaking about things. And, you mentioned bringing us back to our true essence. And the thing is, when we think about our true essence, I oftentimes think about what are really our values, right? As a person, um, sometimes that's an evolution or a process as we get older. Who am I? What is my identity? Maybe sometimes it's thought of as what are my values? What do I have passion for? Who am I? Who am I can be thought of as a context of what I think of myself in relationship to things in the world, people, situations, my beliefs. So I talk about these things sometimes that who are we really in terms of our authentic values, who we really are versus idealized things from society, cultures, your parents, for example. So what you said, uh, helping find the deepest real self. A lot of things get in the way of that, in my opinion, that undermine this. For example, worrying about what people think, right? Or
Yeah.
yeah, what does pop culture say? What does entertainment say? What does the movie say? What does a celebrity say? What do my parents say? What did school
Mhm.
tell me I'm supposed to be?
Yeah, that's
How,
huge.
yeah, how do we even know our real self if we don't learn how to
Mhm.
separate all that out so I can appreciate that? Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. It is so important to separate that out and to realize that your fear of judgment by all of these people, we give our power, we give our personal power to all of these people that have this, this judgment over us, and we make decisions in our lives to please them before ourselves, which pulls us so far away from who we truly are. And when we realize that all of these people, their judgment on you is really just a judgment on themselves
Mhm.
and their insecurities. And when you realize that and you separate that out, and just focus inward and start making decisions about what truly drives you and what your passions are, and to step past that fear of what's my mom going to say?
Mhm.
What's my neighbor going to think? What do they think of me? Who cares? Because they can't really even see
Yeah.
you. They can only see themselves.
Yeah.
And when you realize that and you drop that, you can really tune in to who you are. And when you start honoring that,
Mm.
your life just changes
Yes,
so
ma'am.
quickly.
And I can appreciate everything you said. And I think of it as when we worry about what people think, who we really are by default is being hijacked because we by default try to behave in a way that we think other people approve of, for instance, or to be congruent with what other people want, their values. Now, there's something to be said about being interdependent and being able to be supportive of other people's values. That's fine, but
Oh yeah.
but that doesn't mean you're compromising who you are and your values at the same time. So there's a lot of power in what you just said. And I think there are these rare gems of people that they figure this out very quickly in life. And I'm always impressed by people that from day one, there's just something about them. It's like they're very aware, they have insight to themselves. They're not worried about all these things. And they really aggressively just go after a life that represents who they are. And that's awesome. People who do that, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people go their whole life, they're on their deathbed only to have this sadness that what was my life really? Because it's always about all these things I thought I should, I ought to, I must. When the truth is, these things don't really exist other than in our head. Verse
Right.
versus, in my opinion, most things people regret on their deathbed is not so much um, a lot of things people might think about, you know, well, sure, there's things about how we behave, of course, but I think a lot of it is regret for things people didn't do because of
Absolutely.
because of fear,
Mhm.
worried about what people think. So when we have this automatic way of thinking or conditioning, if you will, yeah, you realize it or not, who you authentically are is hijacked and taken over by things that are external outside of yourself versus
Absolutely. Mhm.
versus having a balance for you to make decisions. And I want whoever's watching this video, I want to be clear. It's not that you walk through life being self-absorbed. It's all about you. I'm not saying that.
Right.
Yes,
Right. Mhm.
what I'm
Right.
yeah, what I'm saying is that there's a balance that I can authentically be myself within a balance of being considerate of the people around me,
Absolutely.
yeah, but also
Absolutely.
being me.
Mhm.
Yes, yeah.
Every choice we make throughout our days, throughout our lives, is either based in fear and based in love, one or the other. And when we start realizing, when we choose something, is this is this from fear or is this from love? And we choose the love, it always is going to turn out differently. And what you said about um, other people, when we become more self-aware and we truly love ourselves and heal ourselves, then any um, issue or trigger that somebody else in your life has with you, if there's an emotional tie with them and that gets healed, then you can truly be compassionate toward them, and they can um, they can have our attention in a different way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
We It's not an emotion. If we have an emotional attachment, then what they're doing, um, our choices will likely be more selfish. Of how we help them will likely be we'll be seeing ourselves in that scenario. But when we heal ourselves and somebody does something that used to trigger us, but because we're healed, we no longer get triggered, then we can truly see them and see what's going on with them. And we can be compassionate for them and help them through whatever issue they're experiencing. and it doesn't have to knock us out of our place. So this is really important with family and relationships, romantic relationships. The reason why it's so important to heal ourselves,
Yes,
because
ma'am.
then we can truly be there in a better way, a higher way, a more effective way for other people. But healing that attachment and releasing it is, I don't know if that made sense.
It does make it does
Okay.
make sense. Um, when I hear you talk about trigger, first off, the trigger is always us. It's how we interpret, internalize the world outside of us, including other people's behaviors. Oh, they triggered me. Well, I respectfully disagreed. It's your interpretation of the person's behavior or
Right.
situation. That's the trigger that results in an emotion and a feeling. So you said something very true from my perspective and how I have different ways of looking at things. So let's say you have an issue with a person, you talk about forgiveness, healing, things like that. So no feeling is final. You can go from one feeling to have a different feeling after working through things with said issue of individual. So whatever we think and believe about the world, people, situations, and things affects our emotions. Emotions are like the steering wheel, they drive and influence behavior. So emotions and feelings are similar to anxiety, are there to communicate to us, to give us a message about something. The problem is that a lot of people repress emotions and feelings, or they avoid what anxiety does. And when this happens, we're undermined by it, because these energies, emotions, and feelings have energy that they're telling us to do something about a situation to compel us into action.
Mm-hmm.
So having a different emotion with a person because we changed it based on this healing process, guess what? We're going to have a different behavior now, different experience with that person because of that. It does change the context. And there is something
Right.
there is something to be said to vet your emotions. Is the emotion based on a way of thinking that's rational versus, oh, I'm jumping to conclusions, I'm assuming things. Maybe I don't got it right. Maybe I'm misinterpreting something here, right? So this
Yeah.
awareness of
Mm-hmm.
ourselves and insight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I can.
Yeah. Our self-awareness, if we really start listening to ourselves and allowing the people around us to be mirrors, to see our deepest selves in those around us, we can see so many things about ourselves. And when we use that awareness, we can really realize what needs to be healed, and where we can improve on things, or even accept things about ourselves. Um, there's some things that we're it would be better just to love ourselves and accept them rather than constantly passing judgment. But yeah, it's I believe it's all in the self-awareness.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that. And what I usually do, because I work with people as a therapist, and the judgment word, right? And I understand what you mean when you say judgment. I really do. I think what happens sometimes is that it gets broad brush, this idea of judgment as a negative, like an antagonistic thing.
Mhm.
Oh, you're judging people. Oh, well, you only God can judge me, right? You heard that one before. Only God can judge me.
Right.
Well, the truth is, there's different types of judgment. Now, the type of judgment I believe you're talking about, yeah, that's not healthy. It can be projection. It says more about you than them.
Right. Mhm.
This idea of, oh, I'm better than you, or you're a good person, bad person. This moral implication of judging someone, like, oh, that look, maybe looking down on somebody, for instance, right?
Right. Or like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
shame. It feels
yeah,
like those
yes,
maybe
shame,
are based in
yes,
shame.
yes, yeah. So
Right.
you're
Mhm.
right. I agree with that. That's not a healthy judgment. What I
Right. But a discernment
yes,
is a
yeah,
different judgment,
yes,
and that
that,
it's
yeah, yeah,
we are by nature, we are discerning, and that is a gift that we've been given,
yes,
and
ma'am.
it's important to be
Yes.
discerning.
Thank
And
you. Thank you for saying
yes,
that. Yeah, thank you.
yeah,
Also,
absolutely.
yeah, yes. Here's the deal, because I work with individuals that, for example, they might be in a toxic relationship, codependent, if you will. very destructive, very harmful. Oh, well, I don't give ultimatums. I don't judge. Oh, I'm not supposed to judge people because my religion told me you don't judge people. You got to forgive them. I got videos all on this topic where I just totally break that down into other things. Because what happens is people conflate or confuse this thing as, well, I don't want to judge, so therefore I can't ever have healthy boundaries with somebody. I can't call out the truth of something I feel uncomfortable with because my emotions are telling me I feel disrespected. I feel not valued. I feel not appreciated. And these are authentic feelings based on an actual context that's real. It's not a made up thing. But because of this idea, I'm not so supposed to judge. Oh, I feel guilty now. And if I feel guilty, the implication is I've done something wrong. When the truth is you're not doing anything wrong by listening to emotions based on a real context. So this is not a moral judgment. This is called using good judgment, which we all use in life, right? For example, I'll give you an example. Back when I was younger, a toxic person might said, "Oh, you're judging me, James." And I would say, "Yes, you're correct. Based on my judgment, I don't feel comfortable with your behavior.
Right.
I don't
Right.
think it's a good idea we hang out anymore. I don't feel you respect me." You're correct. I use judgment. That's right. If you've ever been
Right.
if you've ever been on a job interview, guess what? They're judging you based on certain things. Are you a good fit?
Right. Hmm.
So you get it.
Yeah.
So different
Right.
types of
Yes. It's a
judgment.
very different. There's the kind that's based in shame, and then the kind that is using logic
Yes.
of is this what I'm aspiring to or not? Because if I'm in a relationship where somebody is being very disrespectful to me, um, and I don't care to engage in this, it's not furthering things for me, for this person. It's nothing that I perceive as good can come from this. So it's time to release it.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
that's definitely a discernment. But yeah, with a codependent relationship, it can get really murky, and a lot of layers in that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
You said a beautiful word. Voluntary. Voluntary. 100%. Nobody's twisting anybody's arms when it comes to relationships. These are voluntary processes that happen, right? So that's huge. And I always
Right.
try
Yeah.
to encourage people to remind that. So if it doesn't fit your values intuitively, because we talk about intuitive counseling, right? A lot of times people do not listen to the intuitive part of ourselves, right? There's a lot to be said for
Yes.
intuition. And
Hmm.
sometimes, and I want to be clear, this is not about slapping labels on people and, oh, you're a bad person, I'm the better person. No, it's not about that.
Right. Hmm.
It's about being honest that we all are who we are in this world. We all have a set of values based on our experience, which is good for us. And we all have priorities based on our values. And the problem is, if we are too incongruent with the most important values in our life, then this by default is going to undermine both people because now you have competing priorities that are going to by default undermine the other person based on when either person tries to support their own values. And it's more about, hey, you're just not a good fit. Maybe just we need something different. And maybe it can be more about that versus getting caught up in resentments and so on, right?
Right.
Because it's
Right.
what it is.
Sometimes it's just
Yeah.
time to say, you know what, it's time to move on, and that's okay. And you do get to pick. You get to choose your life. And sometimes um somebody will come into your life and it will feel really great. And maybe there's a reason, there's a lesson that both people need to learn, and that's the reason they're together. And when that lesson is learned, like you can move on, and it's okay to do that.
Yeah, I have to. I'm smiling and chuckling a little bit because I'm thinking of my own life. I was like, man,
Well, we've all had it. Yeah.
because I must have needed the lesson about 3 or 4 times because it's amazing. I always meet the same people over and over
Oh
again.
yeah,
Yeah,
because you will.
yeah,
Yes, you
yeah,
when you hold a certain frequency,
yeah, yeah. It's
you will attract that frequency until your frequency changes.
yeah.
So if you haven't learned a certain lesson,
Mhm.
you will attract that
Yeah,
back.
that's right.
And yes,
Interesting. And the interesting thing too to say maybe on the flip side of that, or maybe as a aspect of this situation. Sometimes I've had people that will tell me every job I have, the boss is an a-hole. He's a jerk. That's very interesting because you've had like 10 jobs in the last 2 years. Maybe, maybe there's something going on here. Maybe there's something with you happening here because wherever you go, there you are. Is it possible that all 10 past jobs, the boss is always out to get you? Or maybe there's something going on in here with yourself we need to work out because it
Yes,
doesn't matter
I
what job you
feel
go
that.
to. Yeah, wherever you go,
Yeah,
there you are. Yeah.
I feel that with what you're saying, and I feel like there's a personal power within that person. Their voice, their essence is being pushed and prodded by somebody until they come into themselves, and
Yes.
it's going to keep happening until they empower themselves. They're
Yeah.
going to keep attracting that over and over and over, and they can point the finger and say, it's my boss,
Yeah.
he's an ass. And it's really it's about, it takes something very magnified to wake things up in us. We're not just going to have this realization and this big like what do you call it, an epiphany by some
Yeah.
minor little detail of a day. It's going to show up in somebody being really magnified in your face, and that is going to be a person who holds an authority often, or a very important person in your life, like a boss or a spouse, um, that's going to have very magnified behavior, because that's what it's going to take to
Yeah.
shake us awake to
Yeah.
certain things about ourselves. It's not going to be small, it's always going to be big, and it's always going to feel really gross. But realizing,
Yeah.
hey, this isn't about them, this is about me,
Yeah.
and taking responsibility for that. It's hard for people to see that.
Yeah. And immediately what pops in my consciousness because of what you said, I've said it for a long time, and I'm not the first person to say it. Many who've come before me have said the same thing. Before you're going to be motivated to change yourself, sometimes you have to feel uncomfortable. You need friction. That's right.
Yes, yes.
You can't always have a safe space. You need some pushback in life. Grow up.
Yeah,
That's right.
absolutely.
Right.
It doesn't feel good
Yeah.
to grow. It
Yeah.
really doesn't.
That's
And
not,
it feels terrible sometimes. But what happens after that, when we really get raw and get honest with ourselves and just really look at ourselves and stop pointing the finger,
yes.
we can experience that growth a little bit faster.
Yes, man. Awesome. Well, this will be a good segue kind of into the next question because I want to ask you a couple things too about what you do. So we're talking about some pretty significant things here based on what the angles we kind of approach things based on our life experience and what we do. Second question is yeah, there can be said there's many things that make up a person's health or wellness depending on what approach you are coming from. For example, someone who's a sleep specialist, guess what? They're probably going to tell you sleep's the most important thing you need to get, which it is. It's actually huge. You can go without a lot of things in life for a long time, but sleep is one you can't. You need sleep, or it's going to destroy your health if you don't get it. So based on where you come from, what is your opinion of what some of the more important variables that contributes to our overall health? So if you're a couples therapist, you're going to say relationships, for example, right? Now you do Reiki. So if I mispronounce that, correct me. I've
Nope,
heard about
nope,
that.
that's good.
Yeah, I've heard about Reiki before. I'm not an expert in it. So maybe talk about, and of course, this doesn't have to be the answer to the question. I'm just bringing up Reiki too, because I'd like to hear you talk about what this actually is as far as energies. You talk about sound, things like that. But what do you think? And you don't have to only pick one. You can pick more than one. But what are the most important things you think that can either undermine our health or who we are, spirit, body, mind, soul, all that stuff, or actually support it and grow it? I'm a huge believer in that freaking relationships, including the one of ourself, is huge. And of course, everything, the whole holistically, everything comes together, right? So go ahead. Yeah. What do you think are some of these more important
Well,
things? Yeah.
that was a big
I
question,
know. Big,
a lot of
huge,
questions in
huge.
one.
I know.
So I'll try to kind of sort through it and unpack that. So the things that I believe that will help us to grow the most, is that kind of what you're, the things that don't help us and the things that do help us? Is
Yes,
that kind of so the things that help us the most, I believe, are, I think we grow the most in relationship because of that mirror. And when our most important sweetheart partner, um, when we allow ourselves to see ourselves through them and to really look at the triggers, because you know an acquaintance isn't going to trigger you, your sweetheart is going to trigger you the biggest, because they are closer to you. And to really instead of become defensive when you get triggered, um, to start to change your mindset, your perception of that trigger, um, and have some sort of gratitude for it, and a realization of, this is an opportunity for me to heal something within myself. These are the deepest stuff that are in our deepest, darkest shadow places that are unseen, they're hidden. So we don't present these things in our being out in public and what people see every day. This is the deep, dark stuff. And so allowing those triggers to allow us to go inward and to be honest with ourselves and to let ourselves experience growth from that. I think that that is the single most important thing for our healing, is the awareness around that part. Another thing that I think is really important is connection to nature. I think that we live oftentimes so disconnected from the earth and lose an appreciation to the earth. And when we can get outside, get barefoot, get on the planet, experience the trees and the plants, I think there's a huge intelligence in that, and a lot of beauty, and a lot of ability to ground the energies through our body. The sunlight, I think our society is, stay out of the sun, wear sunglasses, get the sunblock on, wear a hat, long sleeves, shelter yourself from the sun. And I believe that we are beings, and a lot of scientists have talked about the fact that our junk DNA has photonic light receptors in it. We need light. And I do think that skin cancer is a real thing, but I also think that people that have a poor diet are more susceptible to negative effects from the light. So if we, and that brings me to my next thing, is purifying our body physically, the space around us. Really pay attention to all the energies that are affecting us, what we put in our body, what we see, what we allow ourselves to hear, and what we engage in, what kind of behaviors. Do we watch horror movies? Do we talk smack about people all the time? All of those things really affect how we feel.
Awesome.
And another thing is, if you're not in a space where you are allowed to be you, that oppression is going to have a very negative effect on who you are. I like to think of myself as some sort of a river water and flowing. And if there's dams all over, not letting me flow, not letting me move the way I need to, then that's going to create traumas within me, and I'm not going to be able to grow the way I need to. So those are a lot of the things that I believe will help us.
Yeah.
And that what I do is bring awareness of where are a lot of these things in people's lives and how they can move through and support them in really healing themselves through this awareness. And I use you asked about Reiki. I really I really believe that anybody can do this. It's really a compassion from your heart. It's divine light that comes into your body and fuels with your own compassion, your own passion, and moving that in a very loving way into another person is going to be healing. And I don't believe that you need to be certified or a master in any of this stuff. I think that those classes can be great tools in showing you different ways that you can move energy. But I think that I hesitate to teach it anymore because I think there's a lot of drive-through Reiki, and there's people that are like, oh, I think I'm going to take a Reiki class and be a healer this week, and I think that like that's thinking about it maybe in a way that's not as good, but
drive through Reiki, right? I make a joke about drive through therapy. So drive through therapy is you just drive through the order menu, tell them what you want, tell me what I want to hear, come to the window and they give it to you, tell you what you want to hear, and you drive off, right?
Right.
Drive through
it's
therapy.
Not gonna help.
Yeah. If you're coming to me for drive through therapy, I'm not the therapist for you, because with compassion, I'm gonna be respectful, but I'm also not going to sugarcoat the uncomfortable truths people need to work through. Yeah. So
right. And it's a process.
Yeah.
What?
No, I said no drive-throughs. Anyways, I'm sorry.
No drive-through. I'm actually thinking about making a video soon about how I feel about Reiki. Really the last several years, my business used to be called Rochelle's Reiki, just because I thought it had a nice like ring to it. But almost right after I created that, I was regretful because I believe in hands-on, loving, energetic healing, and I kind of step away from the I don't know. There's like this hierarchy, and a lot of people are like owning Reiki. Like I don't know. It's love. It's universal, and anybody can do it. Anybody can heal, help people. I mean, people truly need to heal themselves.
Yeah.
But anybody can help with a loving hand. We are companions that need each other, and we do need each other's compassion and love. And I think that really can help people out of some spaces that they might need help through. And I do think it's important. I think that ultimately we need to heal ourselves so that we can help other people.
That's right. You said something that about what we feed ourselves. You know, what we listen to, like movies and TV, for instance, correct? Right. So
yes.
So let me hit that one real quick. I'm just checking my mic real quick. So all right, okay, I was checking the gain on it. Okay, all right. So I've said this for freaking a long time, many moons ago. So I work with people in recovery, for instance, whether it be drugs, alcohol, substance use, people with mental health issues that just struggling to overcome this very toxic negative narrative that they have in their mind. And so I talked about external influence and things for the boundaries we have with the world, which essentially are the rules for how things have access to your mind. This is very powerful. Whatever has an audience to your mind, has a potential for influence. And if you, to use the term, if you're just asleep at the wheel, going on this default, then what's being fed into your mind without you even realizing is affecting you, whether it's a horror movie, for example. You mentioned horror movie, right? I remember seeing Salem's Lot as a kid. I was all scared.
Yeah, me too. It was awful.
Yeah,
It was awful.
yeah, the
Yes.
vampire floats up to the window. I'm like, turn it off. But check this one out. So we're the same age. In the 90s, do you remember a band called Beck? Beck? Okay, well, I'm gonna
I feel like the name is familiar, but
yeah, well, I'm gonna refresh your memory. I was a lifeguard at the beach when this came out. And hindsight 2020 looking back, and I never really would go out of my way to listen to certain popular songs, but they'd be on the radio at the gym, whatever. Now these days you can control what your playlist is. So I always get positive things that send positive words and messages, because Beck had a song called "I'm a Loser Baby." And guess what the lyrics of the song would say? I'm not kidding you. So I'm a loser, baby. So why don't you kill me? Ba-ba-ba-bum-bum. It was like a top 10 Billboard
I
hit.
remember that
Yeah,
song.
I'm a loser, baby. At the beginning of time that it done, I'm a loser, baby. So why don't you kill me? Who the heck?
Terrible.
Who the heck wants to feed that crap in their mind? I mean,
Yeah.
think about it. Now, the problem is the melody's catchy. Dun, 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 dun. And that's the thing about the music industry. You can talk conspiracy if you want, but there's a lot of people that have spoken to this issue, that the music industry, that songs in a way are kind of like spells. They're telling you something with a nice,
Absolutely.
pleasant melody. Da-na-na-na. Or what about Mick Jagger? I can't get no satisfaction, and I try, but I can't get no satisfaction. Shut the hell up already. Turn that off. I'm not listening to that, because you know what?
Right.
That's right. I can get satisfaction. I put that in my mind instead. So
Right. Absolutely.
yeah,
And that's a perfect example of you
yeah,
with what is in your space,
mm-hmm.
taking your power back and not giving it to that because of your awareness. But a lot of people don't have that awareness, and they'll just keep listening to it over and over because it's a cool tune.
They're not paying
But
attention.
yeah, and there's something about mainstream music, and it's not all of it, but there is a lot that is at a frequency that irritates our nervous system, and it's on purpose like that. And I know that I've done quite a bit of studying about this because of being a sound healer. The like 432 hertz is very healing for our bodies. Solfeggio tones, if you're familiar with solfeggio, that is very healing for our body, for our energy body. And then there's frequencies that are not healing, that are very destructive to our nervous system, to our energy bodies, to our electrical energetic beings. And most of what's coming over the airwaves is in a hertz frequency that is actually destructive to our cells and to our nerves. And John Lennon, the music that he often did was in a better tone. It was in 432 hertz, and his music was actually healing. And there are other artists that do have that in their music, and a lot of like Beethoven classical music is written in those. It's actually that's why they say it makes us smarter, because it's very healing for us. And so being aware of what are you listening to? Are you listening to stuff that is irritating your nervous system, is bringing you down actually? And also the lyrics, besides the actual frequency of the tones. Both things are very influential on us.
Yes, ma'am. And there is good stuff out there. I'm not sure about the frequency part of it, but for example, is it Cat Stevens' Peace Train song? I like that song, Peace Train, right?
I don't remember. I don't know what that was.
About a time's gonna come where the world gets along. It's like a real positive message. Peace Train.
I probably know it, but I'm not thinking of it.
Yeah, Joe Cocker and that lady he did the song with, "Love Lift Us Up Where We Belong."
Yes.
Now,
And you are so beautiful.
yeah, some of the lyrics with that song, I like, and then some of it, like Joe Cocker says, some people live their life looking behind. And then the female lady, I forget her name, she says, all we have is the here and now. That's true. Carl Rogers said that, the here and now. All we have is the here and now. You know, and then he talks about the mountains and all this stuff. Yeah. So some
Yeah,
songs,
that's a beautiful song. I
yeah, it
love that.
is. Love, yeah, Officer and a Gentleman, that was on that movie.
I loved that movie. I watched it a lot.
That's right. So, yes, there's some good stuff. And so my whole point is, I'm not an expert in the frequency stuff. There are some YouTube videos that have like frequencies for like healing and sleep. So I actually have some of those videos. I've put them on and it's really
Yep.
cool. Yeah.
It's really good for you. And I also caution, you know, some of those frequencies out there are extremely powerful.
Mhm.
They advertise, open your third eye in 10 minutes, you know, listen to these
Yeah.
frequencies. I tell my clients, be careful. That stuff is real. And your third eye will open when your body is ready and when you're grounded and when you're in a good place. Like, don't jump ahead and just, you know, put on some binaural beats and open up your third eye. That can offset things too, and it can create psychosis. So people need to be very, very cautious with everything.
Well, the
Question everything.
yeah, a break with this reality, anyways. Sure. Well, people's normal, what they think is normal. Now, I have a history of being a very uh, I guess avid lucid dreamer. I've been lucid dreaming since far as I can remember. Still have them. So that's a whole other topic as far as a different state of reality in a lucid dream, because you have different things that are you have access to, and then your awareness that it's a dream, and then you take advantage of it to experience certain things, versus how you interface with the world when the body's awake, right? So interesting things
Right.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, a lot of good stuff there. All these things, definitely. You said relationships and what that being like the mirror. And so let me look. I jotted some notes here. So yeah, the stuff about the music, 100%, or just horror movies, what we put in our mind. It's almost like I'm not picking on people, but I'll see people on their journey to recovery, and they'll have all these virtuous things, which is fantastic. And then every other post will be this video or something that's just total contradictory to what the journey there is on in terms of the. It's like, it's like, wait a minute, all this positive stuff, and then you throw this gem in there that's like a total contradiction because of what you're talking. This what are we feeding, right? So, anyways,
Right,
yeah,
right. I know a lot of people that call themselves healers that
yeah.
get drunk on the weekends,
Oh,
and it's like, well,
oh, yeah.
I,
Okay, here we go. I'm
yeah, it's
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna go there.
go there.
People who market spiritualism, people might even have something they're selling ostensibly. What it's like the peripheral route to persuasion versus central route. Peripheral route is when you try to evoke an emotion and a feeling. So if you buy said product that I'm selling, you're virtuous. And not only that, this is the only way to be said virtuous person if you do it my way and you buy this product. I see that happen. The truth is there's a lot of ways to be virtuous and heal the environment, to be a good person, to help humanity. 5 plus 5 equals 10. So does 8 plus 2, it equals 10. 6 plus 4 equals 10. 100 divided by 10 equals 10. You get it. A lot of ways to achieve an outcome. So
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, I think you see some of the superficial element in people that my discernment is they're marketing a particular character, if you will, that I'm this, whether it's spiritualism,
Right. Mm-hmm.
any practice, but really it's a business model marketing virtue that
Yes.
if people like them and subscribe to them, by default you're virtuous too now. And so people who have a desire and need to feel virtuous and be approved of, that they look good, will then be attracted, call it
Right.
virtue signaling. And to be fair, the same thing happens to people who go to church on Sunday to feel good about themselves. That's right.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm
it
I'm
happens.
boiling. I
Yeah,
gotta say
yeah,
this.
yeah,
This is a perfect thing to talk about,
yeah,
and this is one of the reasons why I do not claim to be a healer. I am not a healer. I help people to heal themselves
yeah.
because one of the things that I find to be extremely important is that somebody who is coming and seeking out help is because they've been traumatized. A trauma is either when their power was taken from them or they gave it away. And then comes they're seeking help. They're going through spiritual awakening. They have traumas. They need help. Or maybe they're not going through a spiritual awakening. They're traumatized in their life and they need help. And then they seek out a spiritual mentor. This mentor monopolizes on the fact that this person is used to giving their power away or used to having it taken from them, and they will
exploit it. They exploit it.
They exploit it, and they do a really great job of it.
Yeah.
They take their money, and a lot of these people have great marketing, and that's all. They don't have any gifts or anything.
No substance, just marketing. And the thing is, let's use the term narcissist. Okay, narcissistic personality. Okay, a narcissist can be very charming. They can endear themselves to people on a superficial level, but there's no substance underneath. How do you think Ted Bundy had so many victims? He's very charming and superficial, and he can endear himself to people. And that's right. So
when these people, when they are all they're doing is encouraging, instead of helping them to empower themselves, all they're doing is encouraging them to continually disempower themselves
and be dependent on them.
And it just continues that trauma. It doesn't heal them because they're not helping them to be self-aware and empowered.
Yes.
It's just the same thing.
That's right.
And so that's a lot of the spiritual community is that.
Yes, ma'am.
And the narcissism is with people that are more empathic, that are drawn into a lot of this.
Yes, ma'am.
The narcissism just plugs right in because of that relationship of codependency just magnifies, and it's awful. And I don't resonate, if you will. I don't resonate with any of that. I don't do any of that. I don't want any part of it. And that is rampant in the spiritual community. And
we use the word spiritual community loosely because it's a contradiction who people who are actually like this, because they're not really the real thing. And if you look at ascended masters, people believe Jesus Christ is ascended master. Buddha, heck, even Gandhi tried to do things a certain way. So check it out. Jesus told people about, hey, you can be one with God like I am. That's actually the interpretation if you get the Greek. I'm a son of God. For which of these good works do you stone me? For none of these good works do we stone you, but because you would make yourself one with God, we stone you. And Jesus says, isn't it written in your law that I said that you are God's, right? Gospel of John. We can be one of God. So the gospel, the good news that we are children of God and one of God, this is nothing foreign to a Buddhist or another religion, that this oneness. But guess what? The religious people said, oh, no, you don't. You're not going to take away our leverage and control of people. How dare you? And that's why they persecuted, killed Jesus, right? Because Jesus had the audacity to say that we are one, we can be empowered. These things I do, you can do too, but greater. And that didn't I say that you also are God's, if in Christ and all these things. And I'm not endorsing Christianity. I'm not. I grew up in that culture, but I'm more of a general, much broader view. My belief on religious texts are written by human beings, just to make that clear, based on what they're trying to say God is. But that doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? There are some there's some nuggets in there.
There is.
That's right. What did he say? He said they try to trick him. What's the greatest law? If he picks one, we got him. Well, he says, well, the first and greatest is to be one of God, love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Second one is kind of like the same thing. Love your neighbor just like you'd love yourself, right? The golden rule. Love others as you'd love yourself. Boom. There he goes. On these two hangs everything. So Jesus said these things. Other people in history have said these things and they've been killed for it. because the religious community, spiritual community, you're not going to mess up our business model. No, you don't. You're not going to take away our advantage. No, you
Right.
don't. Yeah. And it is predatory, in my opinion. I'm not going to say names, but there's a Brother Big Name on TV. A lot of the Christian preachers, 100% know what they're doing. They know what it really says in the book, and they misrepresent it. And they prey upon people that are desperate, sick, and needy,
Mm-hmm.
not to empower them, but to exploit their desperateness to
Mm-hmm.
become filthy rich, and it's disgusting.
Right.
And
And they're
Jesus,
doing a
yeah,
great job of it.
yeah, yeah,
And you said it. We have that in us. We have that divine light in us. We are the embodiment of that. And when people become aware that they embody that, they don't have to go outside of themselves
yes.
for any answers.
The,
Because
the,
when we do that, when we go outside, we're actually going away from the answers.
that's right. The
We
kingdom
are
of God is inside you. The
right,
kingdom of God is inside you. That's what Jesus said.
right. And
How
we
dare you
are,
say that? That's right. How dare you
yeah,
say that? We're going to get you now. Don't tell people.
right.
Yeah.
And I find it very curious that right now we are in a new solar cycle. And they've been saying for a long time, Jesus is coming.
Uh-huh.
Jesus is the light of the world.
Yeah.
The sun is in a new solar cycle, and it's going crazy with CMEs and flares and all kinds of stuff. And scientists, I've seen some articles where science has said the light has actually changed. It is different since this new solar cycle started. And we have photonic receptors in our DNA. We are receiving that light, and we are coming into ourselves. And I'm not saying, because I don't know, but is this the coming? Is this pulling that light in that is Jesus and helping us to connect what is divine in us, the embodiment of that God within us? Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. It does. Well, let me kind of get into I got two more questions here, and we could keep going all day with this type of topic for sure, 100%. Where is the real power? I think that's been the struggle of, if you want to use terms, good, evil, yin yang, all these opposite
Yeah.
ends of the spectrum.
That polarity.
Yeah. The power inside of us versus outside of us, right? And this whole relationship with humans, and how we internalize this connection with the source, the consciousness, God, and then maybe just someday finally waking up and realizing, hey, wait a minute, we are a part of all this together. It's one, and I am connected to this divinity. I believe it's Neil Donald Walsh. He says, divinity individuated through every human being, but we're really all together. He's written some books. You may have heard of him. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, let me ask you, do you have any personal experiences with maybe anything that might be considered outside the box, whether it's paranormal, metaphysical, or just something that was part of your journey, that, hey, there's something more to this world? It's not just maybe everything that we're told what this reality is. I mean, the world, generally speaking, or if you want to say the mainstream, promotes basically material reductionism or a mechanical universe. There's nothing outside of what our senses can detect, right? So a lot of people, a lot of people obviously disagree with this, right? That, well, there's more than just the empirical physical senses, right? There's other things too. Have you had anything in your life that maybe was part of your journey to changing your mind? I mean, you've talked about frequency, we talked about energies, healings, intuition. That, hey, wait a minute, I don't believe what I'm been fed my whole life. There's something else here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I have always felt that way. I've always felt that we are not here to work jobs and pay bills. That's not the reason that we're here. I've always felt a very strong sense that we are here for a bigger purpose. And as far as metaphysical, my earliest memories of that are when I would go to bed at night when I was a little girl, maybe, I don't know, maybe around 5 years old. As soon as my parents would turn the light off, a whole world opened up in my bedroom, and I was observing it. I would sit and watch every night. I just thought this was normal, that this happened to everybody. I would see people riding their bikes. I remember, I can see it, through memory. Um, I see an old woman ironing, and a family with making dinner, and their kids setting the table, and people standing around talking and doing things. And I was just sit there, like they knew I was sitting there in my bed watching them, but they just went about their things, and I would just sit there and observe them. And I just thought this was normal. It had happened every single night when the light went off. And I said something to my parents at one point, about this, and they were like, "Yeah, you're dreaming. That's called dreaming. You've got a great imagination." And um, and I started to doubt what I was seeing. And I think that that's one of the biggest mistakes, is when somebody's experiencing, especially a child, um, that you can squash those abilities real quick by creating an insecurity in them, their own self-trust. But my parents were, they told me that it was my imagination. And um and I remember, as a child, my best friend's mom, was talking to my mom and said that, I was very sensitive. I was a very sensitive child. And I remember my mom saying something to me like, when people come to me and they say something about you being too sensitive, maybe you should stop being so sensitive. And I don't know if it was just because I really questioned and tuned into everything. I don't know, but I do have a memory when I was about 13 or 14 years old. Um, I was in the shower, and I was staring at the nozzle thing, where the spigot where the water comes out. I was staring at it, and I stared at it for a long time, and I actually made it move. And I told my mom that I did that, and I ended up in a psychiatric
Oh, wow.
appointment. And Because this is considered not normal. This not normal behavior. She's seeing things, she's making stuff up. She's my imaginative child. So at that point, I think I completely shut it down.
Yeah.
And when I started having children, I was seeing through them. They were coming into the world with abilities. I could tell that they were seeing things that were not necessarily where everybody else can see. I could see that they were connecting. Maybe their eyes were connecting with things in the room, and so I decided I am going to seek out a spiritual mentor to help me to cultivate this in them, so that it doesn't get shut down like it did in me. In that process of me helping, particularly one of my daughters, a mentor said, "You have these abilities." And I said, "No, I don't. This is about my kids. It's all shut down in me." And she really encouraged me. And before I knew it, I was full blast into it. And
It's interesting that depending on where you live and what culture you're in, yeah, you go to a psych hospital versus another culture. Oh yeah, no big deal. I remember True Stories of the ER, I think on the TLC Learning Channel. So
yeah,
there's
I
a
remember that show.
that's right. There's a lady who's African American, and in this episode based on a real story, she's in there having some issues medically and behaviorally. One of the nurses who worked there happened to be from her had the similar cultural background. Went in there and was able to talk to her and her understanding about some type of a it had something to do with a cultural, spiritual type of a belief they have, or a superstition, something that you might call superstition. So she was able to relate to this lady and her understanding based on her cultural beliefs, her spiritual beliefs. And guess what? The lady calmed down. They were able to get her treatment, and she was fine. They didn't stick her in a psych ward just because she's having these beliefs. Now, the thing is, there are double standards. And just for the record, I do know what a psychosis genuinely looks like in a clinical sense. I've seen it. I've worked in psych hospitals. Some people might have a break from reality because they've been doing crystal meth for 5 days and haven't slept in 5 days, and that's a delirium metabolic disruption. If you don't sleep, you can become psychotic. I've seen things that have happened because of more of a organic malfunction of the brain. It's a psychosis that can happen. That it's because of a drug induced state. It might be
Mhm.
someone literally might have an organic breakdown and degeneration of the brain from schizophrenia, where their brain literally is disintegrating. They're losing brain tissue,
Mhm.
so then they can have psychosis. There is something to be said about that. However, here's the problem. If people want to loosely prescribe a subjective interpretation of a psychosis because somebody says they saw something, like in your case, a spigot move, and then they throw in the hospital for that. In my opinion, that's an overreach with a child, because guess what? What about kids that are going to church and they say the Holy Spirit talked to them, and they saw the angel in the cathedral? Those kids don't get thrown in a psych hospital. Why? Because it's culturally appropriate that they're at church. And so, hey, no problem, right?
Right,
So
right.
you're crazy. Or,
Exactly.
yeah,
Mhm.
what about this? What about this one?
Yeah.
I'm going to throw one in real quick. All right. Well,
Okay.
do you believe and say Jesus Christ, that he was crucified, rose from the dead in 3 days? He walked on water. He fed thousands of people by multiplying a few loaves of fish and bread. He did all these miracles. He turned water to wine. Yeah, I believe that. No problem. Okay. Do you believe in Bigfoot? Oh, no, I ain't no Bigfoot. That's funny business. Well, how come you don't believe in Bigfoot? Well, I've never seen a Bigfoot before. There's no evidence. Right. So
Right. Why was it
I'm not taking
okay
it.
to
Yeah.
believe in it
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
stories back
Yeah.
then? But if
That's right.
anybody has an
That's right.
experience
Yeah.
now, you're
Yeah. Yeah.
crazy.
That's right. If you believe in Jesus, you're fine. But if you tell grandma you saw Bigfoot outside, they stick you in the hospital. Uh,
Hmm.
I I had
Hmm.
a um I had an experience as a child that defies physics. It makes no sense. They used to have these big rings that had chains that went to the top of a pole, that it balanced, and all the kids would grab on it, and you run and you swing, and it flies you around in the air while you're all strung out. I forget what they're called. Little ring
Yep.
thing. That's right.
Yep. I remember those
Yep.
at the playground. Hmm.
Yep. I was by myself, Anderson Park in Alice, Texas, by myself on my way home. And if you physics and weight, I had to weigh at least 100 or more pounds as a kid at that point. So I'm holding on this ring, so it goes like this because my weight's pulling it down. There's nothing on the other end to counterbalance my weight to get me level to where I can swing. So I'm just playing on it, running and swinging. And of course, it's not going nowhere because of all my weight. When all of a sudden there's no wind, all of a sudden I go up in the air, and not just level, I go up high for a few cycles around, and I got scared, like what the hell's what's happening.
Wow.
Even at that age, I understood that don't make no sense. There's no, so
How old were you?
I was probably like 10 or 11. Yeah.
Okay.
And so finally I come down and let go, and I ran home and didn't look back. Scared the heck out of me. It made no sense with counterweights and balance and physics. That ring did not weigh enough to do that. And there was no wind that day. It didn't
Yeah.
make no
Wow.
sense. So to me, yeah, I tell that story. Oh, you're crazy. You're just imagining things. Well, okay, whatever.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, weird experience. So maybe it was whatever. But the point is, I worked in psych hospitals. I did inpatient. I did the intakes. I would assess people based on a criteria if they met it or not. And a lot of it is interpretation. And there are some things that, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. They need to be here. But then you have a psychiatrist that you run it by them, and then you talk about it, and then a decision is made. So with children, the criteria can be a lot more flexible because you're just looking at children's behaviors. Yeah, let's go ahead and stick them in. Let's not. Adults, it's a bit more maybe not as flexible as terms, because you're looking at people's rights if you're going to put them in a place against their sometimes involuntary and other times voluntary. So the point is, there is a subjective interpretation of what you might consider what is a mental illness situation, being psychotic, or oh, you're delusional. What, I'm delusional because I don't agree with you, right? Or I have an outside the box belief.
Right.
So
Right. You know,
yeah,
I have a great
yeah.
story that is that's coming right now, and to go on what you're saying. I A lot of times there, people are prayer warriors, and they talk about prayer all the time. It's prayer is amazing. And I tell a story of prayer where my prayer was answered immediately. And when I tell this story, people don't want to hear it. they don't want to believe that that could happen. But why are you praying? Why are so many people praying for so many things constantly? But when you tell them about an answered prayer, they don't want to hear it. They think it's weird. And I had witnesses. My son, when he was about 10, he was crawling on the top of a jungle gym where there was two 2x8 boards right next to each other. Across the top, that's where the swings were hung from. And I used to do childcare, and I was taking care of a bunch of kids, and there was a bunch of school age kids out on the playground, and my son was crawling across the top, and he got his knee wedged in there, and he was screaming. It hurt. He couldn't move, and he was having to balance himself on top of this thing. And one of the school age kids came in and got me, and I ran out there and I stood on a chair, a lawn chair, and I was trying to push his knee up from underneath, and it was stuck. It was not budging. And I was trying so hard. I was trying everything. I probably had 8 people watching, and he was screaming, and my husband was gone at work, and I was thinking, I'm going to have to call the fire department to come in with a chainsaw or something and saw him out. He was pulling, I was pushing, and this was going on for maybe 5 minutes. And my son was starting to lose his crap. And I didn't know how much longer he could hang on before just completely losing it. And I stopped and I just started to pray. I started praying out loud. And as soon as I said amen, and I asked for Jesus, I asked angels, his guardians, my guardians, please help to release him. And it was a very honest, heartfelt prayer that I poured everything into. And I went to push, and there was no resistance. His knee actually fell through those 2 boards, and he almost fell off because his knee fell through so fast, and he was released. And I looked around, and I told those kids that watched that, I said, you guys just experienced the power of prayer, and you will never forget what you just saw. And they were all in awe. And I've told that story many times, and people think it's weird, and they don't really like it.
Yes, but it makes them feel uncomfortable because of how they feel about themselves. Here's my opinion for why people who will say, hey, we're going to be prayer warriors, we believe in prayer, but are quick to be dismissive of miracles or answer to prayer. Because in my opinion, a lot of this can be that people might feel somewhat maybe their own ego with themselves, or their own pride with themselves, or their sense of their own worth or their value within the mix of everything, that they get kind of like, they feel awkward or disappointed, or inadequate, because my prayer hasn't been answered yet, or I haven't had experience with prayer being answered. And when somebody else gets it, maybe I feel jealous, I feel inadequate. So it feels better for me to just be dismissive and say, they're just making it up, I don't believe them. Because if I can change that, if I have that belief, I feel less anxious and better about myself.
Right.
Versus to say, people do get prayer answered. And rather than me being happy that exists, my interpretation is other people are having prayers answered. And maybe I'm not okay with that because I'm not happy with myself. I'm not getting what I want. Or maybe I'm bitter or angry about something I once prayed for that didn't happen. Or I can't do it, right? Kind of like with other things in life, when people have a success or a breakthrough, that we want to say we're happy, but we're really not, because that's more about us. People that are happy with themselves, people who have peace with themselves, people who have love, will never be dismissive of these types of things, right? So to go on the Christian angle, so if we look at people that are authentic and not, 1 John, for God is love. Those who say they know God but have not love, the truth is not in them. They are a liar. The Bible says that, not James Hunter. Okay, what's the definition of love in the book of Corinthians? Love is kind. Love is slow to wrath. Love keeps no records of wrong. Love is not prideful. It doesn't boast itself up. Love does not envy. It's not jealous. So these are all the things that love is, right? And the Bible says God is love. So if the Bible tells us God is love, and this is the definition of love, this is who God is saying God is. And then it's, what does it say? Those who say they know God, but they have not love, these characteristics, the truth's not in them, they're a liar.
Right.
I'm not saying that. That's what the book says. If anybody has a problem with that, take it out on the First John in the New Testament that Paul wrote, right? It's not me. I'm just saying it's what it is. So a lot of this, in my opinion, back to what you said, the mirror and relationships. If people can't be happy with you having a breakthrough of a prayer, well, that's just about them. It doesn't mean
I agree. Yeah. Yes. And I think that the key really is, the more you are aligned, your energetic body, your mind, your spirit is aligned with your true essence, with that divine essence, you're going to attract that in faster. And I think that is the key. And it's really important that people really focus on healing themselves.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, awesome. Well, I have one final question, which is really kind of like a combination of everything we've probably talked about, which is fine. So more of like a summary question. So yeah, based on your beliefs about this world, everything we've talked about, what do you think are some nuggets you might offer to people that will help increase our collective well-being, which is kind of like some of what we talked about? And then maybe the other question here that was in the middle, I want to throw it in the final question too. My number 3 question is, yeah, what is kind of like your existential beliefs, philosophy, what you believe about this world and our reason for being here? Because you said earlier, you don't think we're here to just work and pay bills. And I agree. So kind of like to make this succinct, why do you think we're here? Existentially, what's the purpose, meaning of life? And what are some nuggets that you can offer to people to help with this while we're here, right? Kind of like a little bit what we're talking about earlier. Yeah.
I've had a lot of ideas over the years of why we're here, but I don't know that answer. And so I'm not going to even pretend to know, because I don't. And a lot of people channel many things, many stories of why we're here, of all the galactic wars going on, this spiritual wars. And I keep on top of a lot of things that that people channel that are coming through. But I'm also very aware that when people channel things, that they are coming from outside sources. If they're channeling something that is divine light, if they're not healed themselves, it's going to get distorted, and it's going to come through their perspective, their wounding. So putting a lot of energy into a lot of the stories about what's happening, I think can maybe even steer us further from the course. And I think it also gives our personal power to so many things. I used to follow somebody who really talked a lot about what's happening with the solar cycles and the solar flares and how it affects us. And this person has a lot of followers, and I'm not going to name any names, because that's not about right or wrong. It's just an awareness of where people are putting their energy. And this person says that there's going to be a big solar flash that's going to come, and we are all going to move to a new planet, because this one is doomed. It's going to, who knows, blow up. And we are going to live paradise utopia on a different planet. And this person also promotes, if you have bad vices, if you eat crappy food, eat it all right now, because there's not going to be any on that planet. And I thought, well, this is ridiculous. Where are you leading your followers? Because you're leading them further away from themselves in everything you're saying. And I stopped. I tune in for the solar weather, and then I leave everything else, because it's shocking that she will say, I think the solar flare is coming on Saturday, and people will be like, oh, I have a vacation planned, and they're canceling vacations, they're taking days off of work, they're scrambling around because
Yeah.
this lady is given dates and times,
Well, yeah.
and she's been doing this for many years,
That's
and
right.
she still has all the same followers, you
Yep.
know, and a
Yeah.
lot of people are doing this and saying this.
Yes, ma'am.
And my perspective is that divine light is so big. It's so massive. It's so high vibrational. God head,
Yeah.
when it comes down and descends into us, we are on a 3D planet. We are density.
Mhm.
That light is going to get distorted, and we are only using a small portion of our brains. So, how can we even know
Yeah.
what the heck is going on? How the smartest person in the world, Einstein,
Mhm.
how can we possibly even have any clue what is happening?
Yeah.
And I think the best thing that we can do, my best advice is to master yourself
Mhm.
in this 3D space, because we are on a 3D planet right now. And instead of fantasizing about what 4D and 5D look like,
Mhm.
and what utopia we're going to be moving to, you're not going anywhere until you master yourself right here. And you need to tune into yourself, and you need to get raw, you need to get honest, you need to take a look at who you are, what drives you, to develop some integrity
Mhm.
in everything you do, and be compassionate.
Yeah.
Stop judging other people,
Yeah.
have an appreciation for who they are,
Mhm.
and love yourself
Yes.
and love others. That is my big takeaway,
Yeah. Yeah.
or
Awesome.
giveaway, or
Yes. You gave a bunch of things for me to piggyback off of because first of all, right off the bat, people that continue to follow that lady in that YouTube channel, it's because of cognitive dissonance. Well, I'm going to rationalize why none of her stuff comes true because I've already invested so much time following her. So then they'll continue following her. So check it out. Not trying to be mean, but we don't want to feel too sorry for people that go along with that because they have their part in it too. This is
Mhm.
we're not complete victims in this world.
Right,
We have our part, and why a lot of these people will follow such follow narratives like this is because of being lazy. And here's what I mean by that. So this lady tells them, or this person tells them, yeah, eat whatever you want. Eat whatever you want. It don't matter. It's almost like nihilism, which is devoid of any responsibility for your life in the 3D world, to use that term. This is what
right,
we are right now. That's right. Eat whatever you want. Yeah, tell people what they want to hear. Drive through spiritualism. Yeah,
right,
eat whatever you want. It don't freaking matter. Oh, people love hearing that. That's why all these BS diets that don't work. You tell people what they want to hear. Oh, you're going to lose 50 pounds in 2 months eating whatever you want. Yeah, right. Okay. Oh, but
right.
people spend a lot of money on that. But check it out. Here's the deal: is that telling people what they want to hear, but in this idea of not being responsible for ourselves. In my opinion, we have a generation, a society, if you will, a culture, if you will, that to have this insight and realization that, wait a minute, I do need to do the best I can with the tools I have, with the reality I have, the world I have, integrity, to use the word integrity,
Mhm.
but which requires ownership of your behavior, which requires ownership and responsibility that choices have consequences. What we do matters, that we do have a responsibility. Imagine that. Talk about triggering people. Oh my goodness, you offended me, right? How dare you?
Mhm.
How dare you
Right,
suggest that I have a responsibility for my own happiness?
right,
But you get somebody on YouTube that wants to talk 4D, 5D. So these are also a form of escapism.
mhm.
So I can attach to this form of escapism that pulls me away from this world. And then there's no responsibility, no more, nothing matters. The thing is, it's kind of like being in the 8th grade in grade school, and someone's telling you, hey, you can be in the 12th grade tomorrow. You don't have to go ninth, 10th, 11th, right? Just come straight to 12th. And so because, and anyways, all the the school's going to be destroyed tomorrow anyway, so don't matter. Just don't do your homework, whatever, right? So
Right.
So these are individuals that are very clever. I've seen another lady on YouTube, and guys do it too. Similar situation that she's telling people about how she's done Earth so many times. She's an expert on mastering this world, and there's different worlds of incarnations. And really, she's telling you how to do it the right way. And then she has her Patreon, all this stuff that why you should send her money because she's helping you to do it right. And I just got to laugh because she's very clever. She's very clever. I don't think she's, in my opinion, my discernment, I think she's one of these superficial people that understands there's people looking for something outside of them to validate them, to tell them what they want to hear. And these people are very clever. They're borderline on sociopath with superficial charming abilities. They have the silver tongue, if you will. So those people do exist, and we all sometimes might be enamored by these people. I've been enamored and captivated by charismatic people, only to later on my own discernment realize, hey, this doesn't seem right, and then I move on. Right? It can happen.
Yeah, me as
well. Yeah, I get it. So I appreciate your time today. You're a very nice lady, and
thank you.
Yeah, and for
I really enjoyed this.
Yes, ma'am. Whoever's watching this video, we're both 51 years old. Hey, same age. Yeah. Right. Oh, I didn't mean to say your age. I'm sorry. My
51. Bad. No, it's okay. I'm almost 52.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, we're broken in, right? We can say we're broken in 50, 51. Yeah. So I always joke with younger people. I say, you're not broken in until you turn 40 years old. You just get started, right? So.
Right.
Yeah. We're more.
Right. Yeah.
More than half a century. Yeah.
Yes, and I really appreciate your time, and I really enjoyed doing this. This is my first experience doing this, so it was really neat. And do
you want to say the name of your YouTube channel? Is it just your
name? Yes, it is Rochelle Crystalline, and I just started it. I've posted several videos, and I am on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I just recently started a TikTok, and I'm trying to really, my platform is to help people become more self-aware so that they can be more discerning, and they can really, come into themselves if that's the journey that they're on.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I do appreciate your time, and I will be putting a link for this video on my Facebook. I'll share it with you, and so on. So maybe in the future, we can do a whole other segment about any of these tangents we kind of broke off on, and maybe just do a video.
Oh yeah, I got so many more stories. I got a lot of stuff going on in my head.
All right. Well, thank you for whoever's watching this video. Feel free to like and subscribe, and please go to Rochelle's channel, check her out, and subscribe to her channel too. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you.